Okay, this is the video for page 348. The homework was 2 through 32 even. I'm going to do 1 through 31 odd. Alright, so find the domain of each rational expression. Remember, the domain is tied to the denominator. So if your denominator doesn't have any variables in it, your domain is always just all real numbers. If your domain does, or if your denominator does have a variable in it, then you set it equal to 0, and it's all real numbers except whatever you get. So for example, in this denominator I have a variable. So you would set the variable equal to 0, solve for the variable, so you end up getting t equals 0. And then your answer is all real numbers except 2 cannot equal 0. So it usually looks something like this. X, or in this case, I'm sorry, it would be t. T is the set, that's what this line means, is the set of numbers such that t is a real number and t cannot be 0, is how it would be written. Okay, so here again we have a variable in the denominator, so we set it equal to 0. 7 minus x equals 0. Subtract 7 from both sides, you get negative x equals negative 7. Divide both sides by negative 1, you get x equals 7. Or, really, x cannot equal 7. So again, you would say x is the set of numbers such that x is a real number and x cannot equal 7. Okay, here again we have a variable in the denominator, so we say 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. Add 1 to both sides, you get 3x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 3. So x cannot be 1/3. So again, x is the set of numbers such that x is a real number and x cannot be 1/3. Okay, so in order to do number 9, you actually have to factor your denominator, because you can't solve this without factoring it. So you have your denominator, x cubed plus x squared minus 2x equals 0. So remember, the first rule of factoring is always factor out anything they have in common. So that leaves x squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 0. So we know one of our answers is x equals 0, but now we need to actually factor what's in the parentheses. So you want your factors of 2. The only choice is 2 and 1. So you've got x and x. Always keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you keep your second sign, and the larger number goes first. So now you've got x cannot be 0, x cannot be negative 2, and x cannot be 1, because all I did was set x plus 2 equals 0. You subtract 2 from both sides, you get x is negative 1, and then I also did x minus 1 equals 0, add 1 to both sides, and you get x equals 1. And remember, all of these things that you're getting are what x cannot be. So when you go to write this down, you're going to say x is the set of numbers such that x is a real number and x cannot be 0, comma, x cannot be negative 2, comma, x cannot be 1. So it can't be any of those three. Alright, and our last domain problem has x squared minus 4, which hopefully you immediately recognize as difference of squares. Set it equal to 0. Difference of squares, remember, is a plus b times a minus b. You just got to figure out what a and b are. A is going to come from here, b is going to come from here. You just have to take the square roots of them. So a is x and b is 2. So your answer is, well, not your answer, but when you factor it, you get x plus 2, x minus 2, and this is equal to 0. So set each one equal to 0. So you get x equals negative 2, and then also x equals 2. So then your solution is going to be x is the set of numbers such that x is a real number and x cannot be negative 2 and x cannot be 2. Okay, so now they want us to simplify. If you're simplifying, the first thing that you're going to do is factor everything. So you factor your numerator, you factor your denominator. So if I factor my numerator, all I can do right now is factor out an 8x, which leaves behind 1 minus 2x. And in the denominator, you can't really do anything. But notice, now that I've factored this 8x out, I can cancel those. So then your answer just ends up being 1 minus 2x, which really we know is over 1, but we don't write anything over 1 like that. So your answer is just 1 minus 2x. So all you're going to do is factor and then cancel out anything that cancels out. So here, the numerator is difference of squares. So hopefully by now you can say this is just x plus 3, x minus 3. In the denominator, I can't really do anything. But x plus 3 and 3 plus x are the same thing. So those cancel, leaving me with just x minus 3. Okay, you really have to recognize difference of squares. Alright, in the numerator, I can factor out a 9, leaving behind y minus 2. In the denominator, I can factor out a 7, leaving behind y minus 2. And then see, those cancel. So you're just left with 9 over 7 as your answer. So that's the whole goal. And then you're going to see what cancels out. Okay, so in the numerator here, I'm going to actually do real factoring. X plus 10 I can't really do anything with. So let's find my factors of 40. I've got 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. So what's going to give me 6? 4 and 10 is going to give me 6. So I have an x here and an x here, a plus and a minus. 10 goes here, 4 goes here. So notice what happens. My x plus 10s cancel, and you're just left with x minus 4 as your answer. So that's the whole goal. Factor and then get things to cancel. Okay, so for 21, you're going to factor a negative 1 out of one of them. It doesn't matter which one. So let's say I leave the numerator alone, and then I factor a negative 1 out of the denominator. If you factor a negative 1 out, you end up with negative 9 plus x, right? So I have x minus 9 over negative 1 times, and if I wanted to rewrite this, instead of negative 9 plus x, couldn't I rewrite it x minus 9? Just make sure that you're keeping the sign with it. The negative is with the 9, the positive is with the x. Now that I write it like that, it's really obvious that the x minus 9's cancel, and you're left with 1 over negative 1, which we just know is negative 1. So you're done there. Alright? Notice again, difference of squares. X plus 7, x minus 7. But notice down here I have 7 minus x. That's not the same thing. X minus 7 and 7 minus x are not the same thing. So in the denominator, you need to factor a negative 1 out. So I have x plus 7, x minus 7, and then the denominator I'm going to factor out a negative 1, which is going to leave me negative 7 plus x. It just changes my signs. Now I'm just going to rewrite the bottom to make it very clear what's going to cancel. Negative 1 times. Keep your signs with it. It's a positive x, so I do a positive x. It's a negative 7, so I do a negative 7. So now it's very obvious which ones are going to cancel. Then you have x plus 7 over negative 1. But you're never going to leave it like that. You can just bring the negative up to the numerator, and you have negative x plus 7. Okay, now we're going to have to factor the numerator and the denominator. So let me factor the numerator first. The numerator, 2 times 4 is 8. The factors of 8 are 1 and 8, and 2 and 4. What's going to give me 7? 1 and 8. So I have 2x, 2x. First sign is minus, you change your second sign, and then 8's going to go first. In this one, a 2 comes out, which is going to leave me x minus 4 times 2x plus 1. So that is going to be my numerator. Okay? So all of this is from my numerator. Now let's do my denominator. So all of this is going to go down here. So I'm going to do 4. And the factors of 4 are 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. 1 and 4 is going to be what gives me 5. So I've got an x here and an x here, minus, minus, and then 4 and 1. So it's going to be x minus 4 times x minus 1. So notice your x minus 4's cancel. And then all you're left with is 2x plus 1 over x minus 1. Nothing in there can cancel. Don't try to cancel your 1's like, oh, these are the same. You can't because of the plus and the minus. So your answer is just 2x plus 1 over x minus 1. Okay, so in the numerator here, we're going to do roller coaster. which is going to give me 1 brave soul in the front, 2 in the back, 1 brave soul in the front, 2 in the back. Do your loop-de-loop to get your 5x here, scream or puke, and then down here you can just factor out a 2. So notice these cancel, and you're left with x squared plus 5x plus 25 over 2. And that's your answer. Okay, so down here, let's do our numerator over here. We do 3 times 2 is 6. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. Both of these factors can give you 5, so you're going to have to be really careful on this one. So you're going to have 3x, 3x, minus, plus. Let's do 6 and 1 first and see if that works. So this you have to divide a 3 out of, leaving you x minus 2. Times 3x plus 1. Alright, let's verify and see if that's right. 3x squared plus 1x minus 6x minus 2. Yep, that's actually the right one. So this, all of this, came from our numerator. So we have x minus 2 times 3x plus 1 is our new numerator. And our denominator, we're actually going to have to factor by grouping. So our first group, we could factor out, all of this is going to go down here. So I can factor out a 2x squared. I don't leave myself enough room there. Okay. So I'm going to factor out a 2x squared, leaving behind a 3x plus 1. And then on the end, there's nothing I can factor out, so I'm just going to leave it 3x plus 1. So remember, write what's on the outside multiplied times what's on the inside. So it's going to be 2x squared plus 1 times 3x plus 1. I got that plus 1 right here from an assumed 1 right here. So this is my denominator. 2x squared plus 1 times 3x plus 1. So those cancel. It's always a good sign if things cancel. That usually means you did stuff right. So your answer is just x minus 2 over 2x squared plus 1. Alright, and last one here. We're going to do roller coaster on the bottom. On the top, doesn't look like anything is going to factor out. So this is going to be a fun one. Alright, so let's see. 9 times 25. You know, I just don't know that one off the top of my head. So let me see. Where's my calculator on my phone? There we go. 9 times 25 is 225. Okay. Factors of 225 that are going to give me 15. Let's see. Right now I'm just guessing numbers. I'm dividing 225 by a bunch of numbers until I get some that give me 15. Okay, I can't come up with any numbers that give me 15, so let's go ahead and do roller coaster on the bottom and see if that will give us a clue to what we need to factor in the top. Okay, so we'll do roller coaster down here. So it's going to be 1 brave soul in the front, which is going to be a 3x, 2 brave souls in the back, which are going to be a 9x squared. I have a feeling that this part of the roller coaster is going to end up being this, which will then be why I couldn't factor it. Alright, so 5 in the front, 25 in the back. Do your loops. You're going to get 15x. So same, opposite, positive. So it turns out my hunch was correct. So we're going to leave our numerator the same. And our denominator is going to be 3x plus 5 times 9x squared minus 15x plus 25, which will cancel our numerator, leaving behind 1 over 3x plus 5. A common mistake is to move the 3x plus 5 up into the numerator, but you don't want to do that. You want to go ahead and leave it down in the denominator and just put a 1 in the numerator. So that is your final answer, and you guys are done. Have a good night.